Let's go, girls. Welcome to Talk Wealthy to Me. I'm Michelle Taylor, founder of Women in Wealth. From breaking money myths to building wealth and achieving financial freedom, we're here to empower you to create your own path. Talk Wealthy. Now, join the conversation and let's change the way women think and feel about money. Okay, ready? Today's guest is the kind of woman who turns a simple meal into a meaningful experience. Codi Bates is a visionary restaurateur and creative powerhouse behind some of Lawrence, Kansas's most beloved food and gathering spaces, including the Burger Stand, Bon Bon, Taco Zone, and the Cider Gallery. Alongside her husband, she runs Bates Co., a family business built on community, connection, and intentional design. She's a James Beard Foundation Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership Fellow, a leader on multiple industry boards, and a passionate advocate for equity in the restaurant world. But beyond the accolades, Codi brings soul to everything she does, from raising 2 kids to reimagining what leadership and wealth can look like in the food industry. This conversation is all about purpose, beauty, and the power of building something bigger than yourself, one table at a time. Let's dive in. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Talk Wealthy to Me. I am Michelle Taylor, and I am so honored to have with me today a powerhouse in the business world, a good friend, someone I've really enjoyed spending the last couple of years getting to know, and I think that you will too. So, Codi, thank you so much for being with me today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So for everybody listening, and I know this is going to be really hard for you to do quickly, but tell everybody about who you are and what you do.
Sure. I'm Codi Bates. I am currently in Lawrence, Kansas, which is why we're virtual. I am the co-owner of Bates Co., which is a hospitality-focused kind of suite of businesses. We have 2 restaurants, a catering company, and a fine art gallery and event space. And we are busy. We're parents. We is my husband. My husband is my business partner, Simon. And we celebrated 16 years in business this year.
That is so exciting for any business, but in the restaurant industry, it is incredibly challenging to sometimes see the longevity. But I feel like you guys have made it over the hump where now you become a staple. I think I shared with you, I was once at a restaurant and I was talking to the server and he said he was from Kansas and he knew of your restaurant. And I think it was like so serendipitous.
Yeah, what a crazy story. You know, that happens every once in a while. I think, so Lawrence is Lawrence, Kansas is Kansas University, the home of the Jayhawks. And we get a lot of people, like, we often say that all roads lead to Lawrence, which is really funny. There's a lot of weird connections. And so when you think about it, you know, a business, a very popular business, our oldest being the Burger Stand down on our kind of Massachusetts street, our main street, it's an icon. I think 16 years has made us kind of an icon level in town. So it's because I live here and I breathe it, I can't always feel that impact. So it's when I hear these stories, and it doesn't happen often, but like your story, I mean, like that is so bizarre and so cool, but also like that's the impact that restaurants and food businesses have on people. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love this industry.
Well, yeah, there's emotional ties, most definitely, to people's favorite spots that they frequent and go home to. Once they leave, they want to go back to the same places. And when you've been around for that long, you become a piece of their history and their story.
Yeah, it feels really special.
It is special. So, okay, tons to unpack here. So how did you find yourself in this industry? Did you always think that this is where you would end up?
No, I never really gave myself a chance to think about what my career was going to look like. But there is a thread that I've recently started to kind of tie back as far as I can, that food has always been a part of my life. I recently was going through, we have a giant cookbook library. My husband is the chef, but I know my way around a kitchen. And I was going through some cookbooks and I found a note in this cookbook, and it was like a 3-ingredient cookbook. And I had a friend that gave that to me when I turned 16 because they knew that I loved to cook. And so, I forgot that I've always enjoyed it. I mean, I met my husband catering for his music video shoot. So I think there's always been this thread, but I didn't really have any knowledge or examples directly of people that owned or worked in food businesses. So it wasn't something I consciously thought about, but I do have a long history in my family of small business owners. So I think those two just kind of manifested themselves, of course, with a lot of hard work afterwards, but it wasn't something that I planned for sure. But I'm thrilled.
Okay, so I also have a cookbook library. The difference is that you can't always find me using them. And that's part of the problem is I buy them and I'm like, oh my God, I want to do this. So I try. I prefer to bake because I like to follow instructions and not second guess anything. So I love that you actually use what you have. Additionally, I want to go back to something that you said that was, I think, important. And that is obviously that you came from a family of small business owners. So did you grow up thinking that that was a life you wanted to emulate or chase after, or did it not have much of an impact?
I think it definitely had an impact, whether it was conscious or not. My grandfather on one side owned an RV dealership, and I remember going there when I was younger. Both of my grandmothers had their own kind of ceramics, arts and crafts show business that was pretty fruitful. So I remember seeing that. I think that it's just manifested itself in this really cool way where it was always a thing. So I didn't ever have to think about it being so hard because I saw these people in my life do it. And I went to school initially for theater, for stage management and performance. And, that also is kind of working for yourself in that world. So I think that I was born to kind of be my own boss and run things.
To bet on yourself. And I think that is a commonality, most definitely, because the theater world is not easy either. And, it's just like you in it to win it. Well, what's so funny is, it's such a pivot, right? From what you started out doing or thought you would. I'm the same way. I was pre-dental and now I would never have thought I would have been here. And it's so funny because a lot of people's stories start out the same way. You just never know where you're going to end up.
I think staying curious, right? Staying curious about what is exciting to you. And again, you said it, believing in yourself, investing in yourself, kind of can let things change in a way that probably makes a lot more sense for you.
Absolutely. So as a young person, were you involved in the family business? Like, did you go into any of these places with your family to see the day in and day out and think, holy cow, this is boring or this is amazing?
I think when I was really little, I do remember kind of playing store in the kind of retail side of the RV shop and going to some of the craft shows that when my grandmothers would be selling things and working the booth. I also remember really loving when my grandmother would do an annual garage sale, like give me the task of checking people out and making sure everything gets recorded. So I think that, yes, I remember those things of being drawn to it and having the space to be able to do that, having my grandparents be able to trust me and not worry about anything going awry by me being kind of in that moment.
And building those little skills, right?
Yeah.
And that obviously you're still using today.
Very much so.
So, okay. When you think about the restaurant industry, and I know this is something we talked about before the show, there is some sort of magical allure. I think everybody at some point has probably thought, oh, I would have a restaurant and this is what it would be and this is what we would do. But the reality is it's a very difficult industry to not only survive in, but to thrive in. And I think you and Simon have done a really good job at doing that. Tell me about how you've navigated that. Have you done anything differently to make sure that you were there for the long haul? How do you guys handle that?
That's a great question. Sometimes when I say 16 years, it kind of all flashes back to the first day. Some of it feels a little bit like, wait, is that real? 16 years? I think that one of the strengths that Simon and I have working together is we really do trust each other, and we really do believe that we'll get through it. I think so much about the restaurant industry is getting to the next day, getting through the next shift, getting through the next order, whatever it may be. And that work ethic of restaurants is so exhausting, but so thrilling, and it's so rewarding. I think the instant reward is getting compliments from guests or having your staff have a really great shift and being able to celebrate that with each other. We get that instant gratification. But when we think about what it takes to survive long term, I think so much is tuned in with not just Simon and I's vision, as we know that that's shifted and changed over the course of our time together. It's adapting to our staff, adapting to the town. The pandemic, obviously everyone knew that was going to change everyone's lives, but it's in some ways we were set up for such a big shift because we know how to adapt and change. If you burn an entire order or if something is missing, you have to figure out on the fly how you manage that. So I think because we're so resilient, but we're also so flexible and adaptive, I think that really has set us up for the longevity.
Yeah, and that is such an important quality in anybody. And I feel like women are really good at managing a lot at once by nature. And I think that being an entrepreneur, and then certainly in the industry that you're in, you have to be able to quickly make something right and be able to see where there could be shortages or issues long before they happen and be a problem solver. And one of the things that I have loved so much about our time together is I feel like you have really taken accountability on learning on your own. You guys, when I first was getting to know Codi and seeing everything, the things that you have done, the way that you have set up your family, just from like a risk management perspective, and I've told you this from the very beginning, you are so far ahead of where 99% of people are. And when I asked you, like, do you have an attorney for a parent or what? I mean, you really just learned it as you went, and it was done flawlessly. So yeah, kudos big time on that. And have you found that that's always been the case for you, and like going out to find what you need, the resources, and where do people start that are listening that may have the desire to do something? How did you do it?
Before the I have always been really independent. I really strove to be independent young, and was fortunate that my parents allowed that. I think what that gave me was it empowered me to ask the questions, to figure out the answers, to fake it until I had the answers. I think that it's so funny because someone asked me, I think we've talked about this too, are you a risk taker? And my instant answer is no. But when we talk about everything that we've done as a business, everything that I've done leading up to the business, absolutely am I a risk taker. But it doesn't feel so risky because I trust myself and I know that I'm always learning, and I just know that I'm going to find a way. I'm going to find a way, and it's going to be hard. I'm here for the messy. I'm here for the hard. I don't like it, but I'm here for it because I know that if I continue to work at something will come on the other side. That might not mean success. Absolutely. We've had plenty of failures. I've had plenty of failures, but it all kind of works out. I think investing in yourself, whether it be time, money, just resources, asking questions, getting curious it pays off.
So I love that. And I hope that everyone listening is taking that note, that the number one thing, and I think not just owning a business, but just going through life, is learning to trust yourself, trust your gut, trust your abilities, learn from whatever comes, success or a failure, and keep growing and scaling and moving towards something. And don't let lack of resources stand in your way. I mean, you've said a few times now, trusting myself and falling back on that. And I think it's huge. So that goes into a big piece of confidence gap where I think so many women are less likely to throw their, name in the hat or to say, hey, I want this opportunity. I'm not ready for it, but I'm going to be ready for it. So I think it's incredibly valuable that you do that naturally, and you've got little ones watching you do it, and you never know. Just like with your grandmother's garage sales, you were learning and absorbing, and they're learning and absorbing from you. So that's incredibly valuable. And I also would love to touch on, so many women that I spend time with, they are definitely challenging the traditional, quote unquote, social norms of what a marriage looks like. And I think you and Simon do a really great job of balancing. Both of you are working in the business. Both of you are in the home. How have you learned to navigate this space together? Did it come naturally, or have you guys had to have those meetings of saying like, okay, I need you to step it up over here so I can step it up over there? How have you guys done that as husband and wife, being parents and in one of the most stressful industries to be a business owner?
It's a loaded question.
I know.
Yes
sorry.
and no. All the things.
Yeah.
We are really good at communicating with each other most of the time. I think it's natural for people, especially we've been together 18 years. So almost as long as the business, right? I think that early on, so we were running the business for about 10 years before we had kids. I think what that gave us was the opportunity to figure out how to work, how to make big, high stakes decisions together. The businesses are not unlike kind of running a household. You get to, you need to be aligned in what your end goals are, what your kind of standards are. And without having many really in-depth conversations, we really just learned along the way, doing it with each other together through bad and good and hard and really joyful times, that we've just figured out this flow. And it's not perfect. And as we've become parents, it's definitely been harder. I think, the stakes feel a little bit higher, but it's still good. We are really great partners. I think that's evident in the businesses that we've run. It's evident in the investment that we both have daily in them, which is really, it is rare, but it's rare, and I'm going to contradict myself, but it's also a lot more common. I'm meeting a lot of people who are business partners in this industry with their spouses or their significant others, their long-term relationships. And I think there's something about that. The investment it takes time-wise, personally, to be in this industry and to excel in this industry, it takes a lot on you. And I think that having someone that can understand a part of that is really important. It does make it a little easier in some ways, but it also is hard because balancing a almost 9-year-old, almost 3-year-old, their schedules, our schedules, having all the businesses we do, it takes management. And we definitely find kind of a trade-off on, what's your workload like this week, this month, this quarter, what big things do you have on the horizon? So we can kind of ebb and flow. Simon's the most fantastic father, and that I think has really helped our business relationship as well, seeing that side of him come out, because we really try as best as we can to make things as equitable as possible. Equal is not ever possible, but that's because we have different strengths. And I think that that's really, it's been really neat to kind of look back and watch the 18 years of our relationship grow.
Yeah. And there's so many points in there where I found myself thinking, yep, trust your gut, count on yourself. Because what you guys have done, your strength is obviously on all of the other side of the business. He was the cook, the chef. And it goes back to that old, saying that I've mentioned so many times, you've got to have a string with the balloon. And so you have to have both parts that are different, but can't exist without each other effectively. And you did a really good job at finding somebody that complemented you and built something together that was meaningful and impactful. And, I think back something else you said about being independent and your parents encouraged that. One of the best things my mom ever taught me as a divorced mom was don't ever go out into this world and look for somebody to give you the life that you want. You go out and get it and the right person will come along. And I think that was so critical because when you shift your focus on, let me build this life, let me build this thing, whatever it looks like, instead of let me find the person to help me get there, it changes everything and you build it together. And that also sets the marriage and the partnership up for, I think, more success because you're equal or equitable and you're not as vulnerable for, one thing happening and you're reliant on that other person entirely. You both need each other equally. And I think that is something that needs to be celebrated. So, what do you think was one of the really amazing things that you did when you were starting your business financially to set yourself up?
I think that we never spent what we didn't have. We started our business and up until this day, save for a few exceptions during, 2020, 2022, we have been self-funded. So everything that we have used to grow our businesses has come from our businesses. So early on, we had business partners for about the first 4 years of the business. And I think they instilled in us that, which was really lovely, to have such frugality with every little bit that was coming in and going out of the business. And that is one of, if not the main reason why we still are here, is because we really paid attention to all the little details. And that's become more difficult as we've grown. We, I'm embarrassed to say, just hired our first external bookkeeper because it's been me or someone right under me for the last 16 years, which has worked. We're here. But I think that as you grow, you need to learn and adapt and know your strengths. And there are only 24 hours in my day. And I don't want to do things that are not something that
bring you joy.
Yeah, that I enjoy. And there's other people that is what they enjoy. And early on, having that foundation early on of being incredibly frugal and conscious of everything that was going in and out was the greatest gift to build.
Well, yeah. And I think that number one, the frugality has allowed you now to reinvest in your business. And that's something that I talk about all the time with people that are business owners or starting something that is a passion project for them. You want to always make sure that you consider that to grow and scale something, you're going to have to reinvest in it. So if you're feeling like, oh, well, I'm not putting money into an investment account this year, but I was able to buy this thing that was going to help me grow and scale my business, giving yourself the permission to do so is so freeing to realize that, again, being a business owner is a huge risk in and of itself. And there's a lot of reward there, but you have to pay attention to how you manage the money and what you're doing with it, and don't neglect one side for the other. And I think that something that you said that is a challenge for so many women and so many people in general is just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. And it's something we are all dealing with. I am confident of that, where it's like, okay, yeah, I could hire somebody to come in and be a bookkeeper, but I can do it myself. And then I can take that money and do something else with it. But when you start realizing what your true hourly rate is, and there's all kinds of exercises to do that, it's like, okay, if I can pay someone to do this and it's much less expensive, then I should do it. Just like cleaning your house, where that may feel like a luxury of, yeah, I can have someone come in once a week, but it's my house, I'll do it. And maybe it feels a little too like bougie for you or whatever it is. But at the same time, if it's going to allow you to spend time with your kids or your family or whatever brings you joy, then it's a worthwhile investment. So that's great advice. Now let's just flip that on the other side and say, what was a huge mistake that you guys may have made financially that may help somebody listening?
Spending more than we had. We've had so much success with our first restaurant, the Burger Stand. And it's still successful. It's still wonderful. It is such a very specific formula that makes it really successful. And so when we didn't have partners anymore and we were like, we're going to build our own restaurant. It's going to be ours, everything. And we had a fair amount of money saved up. So we were like, we are going to make this the most beautiful thing. We're going to buy all the fancy stuff. I think we're still paying that off in some way, shape, or form. I think that we didn't check ourselves. We got really excited because we had worked so hard and had such a savings, and we finally found something that we wanted to spend it on, which was another business. And that business is still around. It's Bon Bon. It's our full service restaurant in our neighborhood with a beautiful on-site garden. We own the building. It's stunning. And so it wasn't a full mistake, but there were lots of mistakes in that the rest of the company had to make up for. And the pressure that put on our teams at one location versus, the team at the location that was maybe underperforming, it's stressful. So as we've come out of that and really tried to learn, we're really approaching every single one of our entities as self-sustaining. And then Bates Co., our parent company, gets the profits, and then we can decide how we want to continue to support each of the individual ones. But I think the biggest mistake was that we spent more than we had some of it, but we forgot that opening a restaurant is really expensive without all the fancy furnishings in itself. It takes a lot of time for people to get a return on a new restaurant. So
yeah. Well, and I think that when you envision something and you save and plan for it, and then you kind of give yourself the green light to say, okay, let's go. It's easy to get swept up in that. With one of my first ventures, I created a product for the bottom of shoes, and it was my first kind of dipping my toes in all of this crazy world of being an entrepreneur. And I remember my mom gave me my first bit of seed money. And I remember getting that $20,000 and thinking, okay, I need to go out and I need to buy a printer and I need to do these things. And quickly you start spending, and it's not because it's the best business decision, but it's like, well, I've given myself the permission. I've prepared for this moment. So let's just go out and say yes, because I've been saying no for so long. And that's a slippery slope for sure. And one thing that I love that you just mentioned, and I know we haven't gotten too far into this on other episodes, but you created, with kind of the structuring of all of your entities, a parent company. And you guys, this is what I was referring to earlier when I was mentioning that Codi had done so much on her own. It is incredible how you can build a company and it can outpace what you're planning. And then it's like, holy cow, if something ever happened, all of these things are at risk. What do I do? As new entrepreneurs or, well-versed entrepreneurs, always consider how you own the assets that you own. Even if you're listening and you are not a business owner, but you've got a teenager that's driving, all of these little things are the things that you want to continue to be curious about and do some research and find the people, because you don't ever want one mistake to bleed over into multiple areas of your life. And so when you talk about a holding company or a parent company, that's exactly what that's for. So if you don't know what that is, obviously reach out. I'm happy to provide some resources, but this lady right here is a superstar. So impressive on the work that you did. But how you've done everything is just really inspiring. What is next for this empire that you're building?
Empire. We're really committed to growing internally. Last year we kind of were getting some financial things in line, always are still doing that 100%. But now that I've got a good language to use with myself, with my teams, with my board members, we don't have a board, but that's a term that Michelle, that you have given me, which is so lovely, because I'm building my board, right? I'm building this group of people. So now that I have kind of familiarized with myself with that language, we are really looking at growing each of our current operations a certain percentage in the next few years. And I think we're on track so far, very early on in this, but we really we know that in order for them to grow, we need to invest in our teams and the systems. So we've done a lot of research and looking into how can we continue to develop our teams in a way that supports them as individuals and their careers if they want to move on, which happens in this business, and that's great. But how can it also help Bates Co. grow and strengthen that foundation? So I think that will, in return, help us continue to grow. I think professionally, I'm finding my path to run on. I participate in a lot of things nationally and locally and regionally that really elevate the restaurant industry. And I know that will all come back to helping my business and the people that we employ. So I think that, what's next is us growing, but growing within instead of new locations. I think a few years ago, we wanted to have more things. And now we have the things. We actually decreased some of the things in the last 2 years. And what that has given us in return is a lot more intention in the way that we are able to grow.
I was just going to say, I think that when you're talking to an entrepreneur or thinking about things with somebody who is so driven, it's so easy to say, okay, I've spread all of this out on a table and it's all amazing, but are there any parts that aren't serving the big picture? And if downsizing, is much as there could be lessons there and a little bit of, a bittersweet outlook on things, it allows for so much intentionality and clarity around like the core pieces of what people are building. And that's an incredible place to get to. So not to put you on the spot, but this is something that I am so passionate about. I would love to hear, are you having these kind of conversations just about money and what this tool can be used for with your kids or around your kids? And are you and your girlfriends having conversations that talk about these things?
My girlfriends and I, yeah. I've found a really great group of women who, whether they live in my town or around the country, are in the food business or small business that's somehow related to food. We all talk and share. And the thing that I think is so important is that we share numbers. You can't keep those numbers secret, because the numbers could be all over the place, but if you don't say them out loud, you're going to create a number in your head and it's going to be so far off, whether it's good or bad. And so we need to stay grounded in that. So staying grounded in those numbers, we talk about it a lot, and we are there for each other just to listen, but also for advice and to connect to other folks that could be, other board members for your own personal board. And then with our kids, trying to figure out how to keep them grounded in terms of they get to just kind of like walk behind the bar and grab a Coca-Cola when they want, which is really silly. But they definitely see the struggles of being a small business owner, and they see the sacrifice, and money is just now starting to kind of come into the conversation, especially with our 9-year-old as she kind of gets curious. And she's got an allowance, and sometimes we get that. I mean, it takes a lot of organization to manage this house, but we definitely are very open with her about how much things cost. And just because we have the money doesn't necessarily we need to get it. We can be patient. We can wait. Is this instant gratification? Is this something that we want to work towards? And let's put a little thought into it. So, we're still figuring that out, but I feel really fortunate that we definitely don't hide things from them. And as age appropriate as we can make conversations, we will have any conversation that they want to have.
I love it. That's the way that we change their lives and others watching, is not making money and money conversations something that happen, in corners of clubs that you're not part of, or in secret once the kids go to bed. I love that you're doing that. And now it just totally dawned on me. I think this is an important thing to mention as we wrap up. You and I both have a Beckett.
We do have a Beckett.
I mean, what a small world.
The craziest thing is, we have Becketts.
And man, they make life exciting, right?
They do. They sure do.
Well, obviously, I could continue talking to you forever, but for anybody that wants to follow along on your journey and what you all are building, where is the best place for them to follow and be a part of the story?
Sure. You can find all of our businesses on bates-co.com. That's a great way to look at, what we're up to, hear the story of Simon and I, and kind of see what news making is happening regarding our businesses. And then I'm really active on my personal social media at Codi B, CODIB. And I like to share, a little of my personal stuff, but a lot of these professional things and these professional connections, and just, I put myself out there in a way I'm pretty open. I'm an open book. Michelle knows this. And I think that information sharing is the best thing that we can do for folks. And I by no means have all the answers, and know that most of the people that I talk to don't have all the answers, but we all have some answers. And I think sharing them is really, really important.
Oh my God, I love that. Sharing what answers you do have, and then finding the ones you don't together is what it's all about. Well, I am so proud of you and what you're building. You are just such an inspiration. I think that you are leaving an impact not only on your family and your friends, but on the town. And I just am so happy that I have gotten to see all of this and get to know you. And as always, for everyone listening, I'm appreciative that you choose to spend your time hearing about ways that women can think and feel about money and change it for not only themselves, but others. Continue to do the work, continue to bet on yourself, and don't keep it a secret. Until next time, everyone, let's change the way women think and feel about money together.